It's rock and roll.
Welcome to the Look It's Rock and Roll podcast. Andy and Bill are back, and we're going to continue our exploration of the W.A.S.P catalog, if I remember to hit record. Yes, I did. Before we get going, we want to thank everyone for tuning into all the Look It's Rock and Roll podcast episodes, particularly the W.A.S.P ones. It is fun to take one band and go album by album, and I'm really happy that W.A.S.P ended up being the first one. We're going to be talking about the Neon God Part 1 today. But before we do so, Andy's actually a member now of his very own podcast, even though he's technically a member of the KissFAQ podcast and the Look It's Rock and Roll podcast. He has started up a new Kiss-related podcast. So, Andy, Wildman, tell everyone about your new show.
It's not my show. I'm just a co-host. Pasquale Vareris from Montreal, Canada is actually his. I'm just a co-host. I'm along for the ride and to drive everybody crazy. You know what I mean? Like everywhere else. But yeah, for years I had been at Pasquale to do a podcast just for fun, you know. And I love all you guys in FAQ, all the guys on FAQ, Matt Porter, the Kiss Room, all the guys. You know, I love everybody, and I'm just having fun with this, and and I drive everybody crazy here and there. You know, so anyways, finally. For years, Pascal would do a thing called Kiss Army Nation TV, and he would go to like expos and stuff like that, and he would do it. And then once in a while, I'd be like, dude, you're missing everything because you're like, you got a camcorder and you're walking around with everything, which is cool after the fact. But, you know, when you kind of missing the enjoyment too at the same time a little bit, you know. But anyways, for years, I'd been like, hey, man, you should do a podcast. You got this TV thing going on, man. People are watching, so you might as well just do like a podcast. And then, what's going on in the world. And then like a month ago, maybe a month, I just sent him a blue. Hey, dude, you want to do a podcast or what for Kiss Army Nation? He's like, sure. And then all of a sudden I was like, bang, jump right into it. So that's the deal. Actually, we just recorded another episode for In the Bank. So we just released number 2. Well, He released number 2. Like I said, I'm just a co-host. I'm going on for a ride.
I know, but you're here and Pascal is not. So, congratulations on getting the first episodes out. Bill, what you have going on with eight? Is it A to Z or A to Z? I want to be English.
It is A to Z for United States, and it's A to Z for our other more intelligent nations. So I wanted to ask Andy real quick about his. Now, is that a YouTube show, or is it on a RSS feed or anything like that, or do you know?
He's got it everywhere. He's got this. It's on YouTube. I guess it's on Podmatic. He's got it on. I don't know if it's on Twitter. I mean, he's got it like on 6 or 7 different things. So it's all over the place, and I don't have all the things because all I know is YouTube. I just keep doing YouTube, but it's on Podmatic. It's all over the place. But if you want it again, it's Kiss Army. Kiss. Jeez, I can't even. Kiss Army Nation podcast TV or something like that. You'll find it, and he's also got a Facebook group too. So,
what's the name of the Facebook? What's the name of the Facebook group? Kiss Army Nation.
Yep, Kiss Army Nation. Jeez, blah blah blah.
There you go. Next time, have your piece of paper with all your notes, and I'll surprise you with completely different questions.
Of course you will.
All right, Bill, what you got going on in your world?
Now, I have a internet radio station with Alan Tate and Jeff Humphrey, and it's called A to Z or A to Z Radio, and it's A to Z Radio.net. And what we do is we run the station 24 hours a day. We have every variety of kind of music that you would want. Sometimes you can go from hearing George Jones to hearing Mastodon. Our tagline is, we are the internet's biggest variety of rock, pop, and country music. And we're very welcome to new and unsigned artists or artists that actually have publishing in place. We do a 10-song block every 2 weeks called Fresh Cuts, which really gets the new songs put out. And we have, right now in our set, we have everything from Taylor Swift's new re-release of her music, so she's actually getting paid for it. And we also have a duet that's an international duet. One from I think that she's in Massachusetts, and the guitar player is in Brazil. They're called Ricardo and Rebecca, and some good proggy kind of rock music and everything. I throw in all kinds of punk and stuff like that. And then we also have about 7 shows a week going right now. And my show is Little Willie's Record Shelf. It's on 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon Eastern. And I'm basically doing kind of the same thing. I just find a song I dig and I throw it out there. It doesn't matter if it was a single. It doesn't matter if it's an epic. It's just something I like. And I kind of theme it up every once in a while. But some great shows. We have a Friday night live music with 3 hours of live music from all kinds of artists. And we have yacht rock shows, and we have Metal Monday. And we even have a Sunday Soul, where it's 2 hours of solid soul music. So it's A2ZRadio.net.
Nice. Well, that's what
Nice.
everyone here does.
So, Julian, what are you up to?
I'm hosting the Look It's Rock and Roll podcast, and we're going to talk about the Neon God. let's get into the W.A.S.P episode, because, like Joe Perry once said, "Don't bore us, get to the chorus." People want what the show's about. So, the Neon God is the 9th show in our W.A.S.P series. This album was released April the 6th, which is today, 2004, which it isn't anymore. On Noise. Wait, what?
2003.
Was it 2003?
Mine.
2003.
Whatever. Yeah, okay. So, April the 6th. It's the anniversary of the release of the album. Goddamn typos. It's the second album featuring guitarist Darryl Roberts. Mike Duda returns on bass, Frankie Banali on drums, with the exception of one song which features Stet Howland, who becomes more of a picture in the future. When this one came out, I remember some of the press Blackie was doing at the time, and it just did not spin my wheels. So I didn't bother buying it or part 2 for several years until afterwards. I got a bit back into the band with the releases that came after about 2007, so I wanted to catch up on all the stuff I'd missed. But I never heard much discussion about it as an album. It was like, oh, Blackie's doing a concept piece. Oh, I bet it's going to be like Crimson, which... some people I think do think that it's pretty much a remake of that. Others have different opinions. Bill, let's start with you. You raised your hand. You've got a different opinion. What's your thoughts on the...
I definitely do have a different opinion, and I was going to kind of save it for your second question, but this is just a rock opera where I think that Crimson Idol could have been a musical where there'd been dialogue in between the songs, but this is a full-on rock opera written where all the speaking parts are part of the songs. And I think that I've mentioned back in previous episodes that Blackie seems to have an affinity for one Pete Townsend and The Who. And I think that this is probably his hybrid between Tommy and Quadrophenia. I think he's taken kind of a couple elements from both of those and kind of mixed them together, brought him into the 21st century, and it's a really good rock opera. And I know what you were talking about when the first promos came out that you were talking about, Julian. And this is not your typical W.A.S.P album. Even Crimson Idol is a little bit different. This is a piece from beginning to end that very few elements would fit outside of that piece, and it really does have to be consumed with 3 major parts. And the first part would be the story. And fortunately, I found the story on waspnation.net, and I read all the way through it. And it's like, wow, this is a pretty intense story. But then I kind of got the images of Tommy and Quadrophenia going on, with the drugs and all that stuff. And then the second part, of course, is the music. But you can't do that without those 2 and the lyrics. Because if you're just trying to sit and rock out to this album, not going to happen. It sounds good. It sounds good from beginning to end. There's no real lousy music in it. But to absorb the whole thing, you have to have those 3 elements.
All right, Andy, take us back to the day when you heard about it, you probably knew it was coming out, and your thoughts about him doing another concept.
Well, when it came out, it's weird. It's kind of same thing. It got kind of lost in the shuffle. It came out. I went looking for it. I couldn't find it. Another friend of mine actually beat me to the one copy they had, and I couldn't find it. And the place wasn't going to get any more. So it just like everywhere I looked at the time, I couldn't get the CD at all. I was just so baffled and just not happy with it. And actually, I had to borrow. I know I'm going to say it, I had to borrow my friends, and this is my first copy of it. Still, I know I would buy it. I am a fan of the band, and I would buy it, but I couldn't find it. And people say, "Oh yeah, the internet and all that stuff." At the time, I'm telling you, I couldn't find this, and I was so upset. My buddy had. He's like, "Ah, look, I got the original one." And but years later, I end up getting it, but in a record store, and it was like secondhand. I was lucky. I'm like, oh wow, no kidding, finally. But other than that, that's how I ended up getting it. And then when I got it, and like, oh yeah, this is kind of the Crimson Idol, but a little bit, I don't know, we say deeper, kind of more, that kind of way. And then I did see the tour. So, and actually, whoever does the tour dates, they got it wrong. So the date for Connecticut is actually August 1st of 2004. So here's the ticket stub, and they have it marked down as 1/8/2004, and actually it's the 1st of August. And I got lucky, got a couple picks. So, and hey, can't complain, man. And I did see him at that theater in Connecticut, which is kind of a area. But they only played a couple songs from this album on that tour. But it was my find in Sister Sadie. You know what I mean? So they didn't really play a lot from the album on the tour. So it was kind of got lost in the shuffle. So that's my really beginning of it. So that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah, so let's get started into a dive into this album by starting with the first thing most people see when they finally obtain a copy, and that's the cover. Your first impressions of the cover art, since visually back in the day that was important. Now, Andy, of course, you've already explained that you didn't actually find a copy because your friend had snagged it. But I mean, looking at that artwork, you would have seen it online. Bill, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, every time we talk about W.A.S.P, you have some good points to make about the cover art, so it's easy just for me to pass the buck.
Well, this is the one where I'm going to come up really light because the most of the cover art I've seen is a thumbnail, because all I have is a digital copy of it. And I've actually seen more of it by looking at Julian's background than I have anything. And it's like, oh, well, there's people mixed into that. So, it's an all right looking cover. I think it's probably a little bit better than the cover for Crimson Idol. I can see where, the individual, Jesse, he apparently is the person in the picture, and he's just looks like he's trying to escape the mix of all the people that are blended in behind him. So that's really all I got on it.
Yeah, a nice riff on kisses, smashes, thrashes, and hits with some demons and souls in the smoky background. I see like spirits and souls plus kind of the body. So yeah, it is what it is. Again, by that point, I don't really care that much about cover art. It look good as an LP.
Yeah, but look at it. It's really a bunch of naked women in the background. Look at it if you look at it closely, guys. It's what it is. That's what it's all in the background.
Oh,
I see figures, but I can't sort out the genders, and I don't see too many boobies. So We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, they're obviously not that impressive. And Andy, very good on you actually spotting that then. How closely were you inspecting this?
No, it's easy. It's easy, clear and easy right there. Right between the two arms when he's got them raised up. You can't miss that. It's just like right there.
Thanks a lot. We just got dinged by YouTube. All right, let's talk about how would you overall describe this album and the music to a fellow fan, someone out there who knew Last Command or Winged Assassins. How would you describe this album and what's your overall impressions? I know we've all kind of touched on a little bit on all that so far. Bill.
Well, I would definitely say it's more of the latter day Wasp variety. So you're not going to get stuff like you would off the first first four albums. It's definitely a post Headless Children kind of album, and that's where they tend to stay more thematically all the way through. The one thing I did notice is uh, a lot of great playing all the way through it. I mean, there's really not any sour stuff except for the one thorn in my side with Wasp is those confounded cymbals, those digital cymbals that sound like, it sounds like your tires losing air or something like that. That's it, But outside of that, the playing is great. The sounds are great. And I'll get into that a little bit more when we go song to song. But, if you like Headless and Crimson Idol, definitely. If you liked, the self-titled and Last Command, it may take a few listens to get it to where you're digging it a little more, but you could. It wouldn't be a problem to dig it.
Nice. Andy, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think, see, it's you definitely. Bill hit it right on the head. You can't just like pick out a song and just play and say, yeah, I'm gonna rock out to it. You got to listen to the whole thing. There's no way you could just get around too much of it. It's all interplays with each other. If you like the Crimson Idol, you're gonna like this. You're gonna love this. It's a kind of. But if you only like the first Wasp album, Last Command, Headless Children, if that's just you probably won't dig this as much. This is definitely the sit down. Look. This is. I printed out all the stuff and I even posted it today. This is the press paper. I just copied it off the Wasp Live Nation. Here's the story. It says 4 pages long. And then you got all the characters is another 4 pages long. It tells you all about the characters. And then the locations of what they talk about, like Asylum Number 9, the Wishing Well, where they are, where they be. So you really got to read this stuff. You just can't. You could just flop it in and play it, and you're gonna kind of go, "What is he?" Talking about and stuff like that. You really got to read into this stuff to understand it, and then you get into the album. So it's kind of like it's definitely seriously homework.
Yeah, you have to immerse yourself in it definitely because actually, if you just throw it in and listen to it and roll the windows down, it's still a good jamming album. But if you're trying to get in depth with it, you got to really go in depth with it. There's no just playing around with it. But it sounds great, just cruising with the windows rolled down. Thank God it's March, so I had the windows down.
Yeah, so I kind of agree and kind of don't agree. If I was to compile a, second best of, best of the best, went through, I think, Eldorado. So everything that came after that, there'd be a few songs on this album that I think stand on their own just perfectly fine. Because you know what? All those frickin' notes that Andy just showed you, I can't handle with an album. I really have difficulty. 10 pages of this booklet are the backstory. And I just don't care. I want to be able to put in an album and listen to it without it becoming an instruction manual. Now, for the first time ever, and while we were preparing for this episode, I did go back and read all 10 pages. And, Blackie does very kindly, thank you, Blackie, provide a précis at the end of it. Just 1 or 2 paragraphs that say what the frickin' thing's about. And then you can go and read the turgid. And I am just really, really not interested. I want to get the story out of the music experience. But that said, like I said, I don't think the songs need to be played from start to finish because there are a couple on here that I go back to. No problem whatsoever at throwing them in as a best of. But again, it's down to your personal taste and preferences on that, on how you kind of consume your music. Again, I don't want to go to a website and have to read about it, says the guy who participated in the writing of a book about a concept album. Go figure. So that's just myself not being very consistent. What do you think about the Neon God plot, and how well do the songs on this, volume 1 of Neon God tell that story? Andy?
Well, I'm kind of like you. I'm not like the biggest reader either, like to that point. And then, like you said, I'm not really the big reader. But man, I had to read this one because I just didn't want to I just didn't want to slap it in and just play. I agree. There are a couple songs that you can, but I just want to get the whole gist of what's going on. I like it. It's got its. I just think it's a little bit. The only thing that kind of throws me off is like when we go through these songs, like Jesse's talking to this person, and then the sister Sadie's talking to him, and back and forth. But it's still Blackie singing the words. So it kind of throws me off sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Guys, get it? It kind of throws me off. I wish there was somebody, he had got a couple people to say some of the lines. Like if you got the woman to be a sister Sadie, if you got a woman singer and just said, the couple of things. I mean, I know they get together guys in the band, but mostly, 99% of the time it's Blackie singing. So you can't separate.
Only 99.
Huh?
Only 99% of the time.
0.9.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like, I can't. Sometimes that's why I hit like, Jesse to God to Jesse, Jesse to himself. I wish they had.
That's why it's got instructions.
I understand that, but when you just slap it in your ear, you're like, okay, so that's why you have to read it. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's like you basically have to read it to understand the full stories of what's going on. But the story is like, kind of any other story. Parents have kids. They don't want them. They get a drug abuse. You know what I mean? It's drinking, drugs, get used, abused. I'm a god, you're not a god, and throw you out like trash, right? Basically, that's what it comes down to. What the story is, That's what I think. But
it's really uplifting. Bill, do you need an instruction book?
And well, actually, for this album, yeah, I did, because if we go back and we might want to watch for Getting Struck by Lightning, because I agree with Andy 100%. Okay, I guess we're good. That's the thing is, where you're talking about Blackie doing all of the dialogue. Now, I don't know how well Andy is, but I'm sure that Julian's, back to the Who. If you go back to Who's 1971 release of Tommy, you hear the individuals in the band are the only ones doing any of the vocal. But then when you take that out of that context and you put it like in the motion picture soundtrack, where Tina Turner's the Acid Queen and Elton John's a Pinball Wizard, you're getting these different voices coming in. It makes it a much more cohesive piece. And then, and here we've got one guy singing all the parts of, 11 billion people. So yeah, that's where where you have to have the story and you have to have the lyrics along with the music for it to really make any sense. Because sometimes, when you're just throwing in the way Blackie is, all you hear is yada da da yada da da. You may not even know what he's saying. So going to the lyric gets you that extra boost, but then having the story behind the lyrics makes it even more. And we'll get into that a little bit more. As far as the story itself, I think it's a good story, and that's where I find the I grabbed the Messiah the Messiah concept from Tommy, where he was essentially turned into a Messiah even with not even being at his own will. And then you have the reckless hoodlum, drug using adolescents that grow into hoodlum drug using adults in the latter part of the story, when you get into the invisible circus and all of that. So, it really does scream like he's just kind of, cherry picking out of the Who. But yeah, I think it's put together pretty well, because every TV show you watch is based on something else. Every movie is a remake of something else, or an adaptation of somebody's story. So I don't, discredit him for cherry picking the Who. He, like I said, steal from the best. But yeah, I think it's a good story the way it's put together. And I honestly haven't listened, and that, I'm the new guy, so I haven't listened to part 2 yet. So I don't know where this story is going. So no spoilers, guys. Um, yeah. So I mean, I know where we are up to the point at the end of this record, and I can't wait to dig into the second part of it. And now I know that I'm gonna have to invest a little bit more time than just throwing it in the Jeep and listening to it. It's going to take a little more reading into it, but yeah, I think it's a good story.
Yeah, I think some of the points that Bill that you've made, about the Who, particularly, you're going to hear me mention that band a few times today when we talk about the songs. But it's 10 pages. It's too much. It's too much to read. But you do need to read it to understand. And I think the point about Blackie's vocal phrasings don't have any separation between the characters, and it's not like he is a band like the Who, which had Daltrey, which had Pete Townsend could sing, Ox could sing as well, and other bands that have done concept album. Well, Geddy Lee. Well, let's not talk about that.
Don't forget Cousin Eddie.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Mooney put on the parts that Mooney did was perfect for Mooney. So,
yeah, so even W.A.S.P back in their heyday, you wouldn't be having a duet with Chris Holmes. This is the Chris Holmes song on the album. Just wasn't happening, and I'm glad Chris does some singing these days because some of the stuff he does is completely passable when drunk in a pub watching. But it wouldn't really work. So understanding who's singing what does help. Let's go straight into the songs, guys. Overture, Andy, go.
It's fine. It looks like they just like mishmashed a bunch of stuff that like I had this kind of musical thing at one point, and then I had and then maybe a year later or half a year later, oh man, I did this thing, but I don't know where to put it. It's like a mishmash of different things together. You know what I mean? Like it keeps changing. That's all but it's not bad, but it's just, it changes. It's not the same thing. Like for so long, he does one thing and then changes, goes to another thing, and changes, goes to another. It almost like, he had all these mishmashes of pieces everywhere that he wanted to do for songs, and they didn't go anywhere. So I got them. Let's put them on this together, and that's how we start. That's what I get.
Fair enough. Bill, what's your thoughts on the open? And this is, of course, the opening instrumental type thing.
Yeah, and as an opening instrumental type thing, I mean, like I said, it was well played. Everything sounds good on it. But if you don't have the idea, the concept in your head, which Blackie does, of course, because he's the only one that has it, you don't know what's kind of going on through those rhythm changes and those tempo changes that go through the song. Everything's played well. It's all pieced together pretty decent. But, that overture, that would be something where you would need to have something visually going on in your head to kind of determine that. And that's where the backstory comes in. But I mean, it gives you an idea of maybe a setting of the scene about what time frame the story is in or whatever. But outside of that, not much more, but it's okay. And that's all I got.
Yeah,
we're going to be saying that a lot today.
Yeah, well, we will, because there's a lot of short intro pieces that will just blow through quickly to get to the real parts that matter the most. I mean, for Overture, my notes are no longer Titanic, just Overture, not even a prologue. But it is pretty good as an instrumental type opening thing. And lots of dynamics, which Andy said, lots of different pieces and styles and elements coming in. Something that I've mentioned on the recent albums is the use of keyboard. It gives it a very Uriah Heep-ish kind of feel in parts, just that the way the keyboard is applied, and it's, grand and it's bombastic, which such a simple title doesn't quite, express. So I like it, but there are parts of this where I can't help but find myself singing, I don't want to be the Crimson Idol. Just the melody is floating there, and I'm sorry, whether it's subconscious or not, it ties back to the previous concept album. That melody is in there, and I can't unhear it, and it kind of, to a certain extent, it pollutes my opinion of the album because I hear that. So,
and I agree with you 100% because that's where, a consistent thing with opera is that you set that one main theme where even when you think it gets to a point where it hooks you back in. So here we go with the Who, the feel me, touch me, heal me part. That's all the way through that piece. And that's the thing is if he would have had some kind of vocal melody just singing over some of those parts, that would have been, it might have shed away the I don't want to be part and got you a little bit more invested in this, because there are a couple of those themes that bounce around through the songs, but it's just kind of missing in the overture.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Who, so I'm going to go there for this first short acoustic-ish piece. Why Am I Here? And my notes are straightforward. Who-ish with the acoustic guitars, but a really nice plaintive vocal that expresses Jesse's pain to God. Where is here, though? Is it with his abusive mother? Is it in the orphanage? Is it more metaphysical? Or did I just not digest the instruction manual enough? Andy, why am I here?
I don't know. Why am I here? That's, I guess, I know I'm not really, be honest, I know I'll probably get, as Bill says, the lightning's going to strike. I'm not really a religious guy. So, but, there are people in this world that they actually know, why am I here? That's their thing, why am I here? What is my purpose on this planet for? Don't know, so it's probably, as it says in the thing, Jesse's talking to God, why am I here? Because, if you read into the story that his mother, after his father died, his mom went way downhill really quick, drinking, doing drugs and this and that, and she started getting abused and used and everything else, and then he was getting abused and used by people, and then she basically threw him away. So basically, that's what I get out of it, and that's what I think that he's talking to God about. Why am I even here? Why was I even born? Probably. Why am I even here? The end for me.
All right, which means the beginning for Bill.
Yeah, and I held up my notes, and I actually used the exact same word, who-ish, because you can't get away from it, because that chord progression is Pinball Wizard. The beginning of it is dun 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 dun, and you can't get away from it. The acoustic guitar sounds excellent on this. I mean, it's probably some of the best acoustic guitar I've ever heard recorded on a rock album. You may have some like, Michael Hedges or something like that that's really good sounding. But when it comes to a rock piece, the acoustic guitar on this sounds excellent. And all I could think was, if Blackie could have shown Kiss how to do it, because the acoustic guitar on the later day Kiss stuff was awful. But yeah, just a little who-ish. It's kind of setting the scene. I think he's talking to himself, being still under his mother's thumb, or being the devil in his mother's life, however you want to look at it. I did look at the tracks as being chronologically along with the story, but we'll get back to that more later. That's what I got.
Excellent. Good thoughts, guys. Into the first full song on the album, Wishing Well. Andy, let's start with you on that. Your thoughts?
Well, it's it's, as the story goes, right? He's in the room, and what does he do? He looks out the window and sees the wishing well, and basically, I guess in the stories that was a lot of, they think, that's what he says, is that, that this is some of the way those kids were, that was their out. The wishing well was so deep that kids would just, or whoever was in there would just jump in the wishing well and die. So that was their thing, the wishing well. That was their wish to end their own lives, because that was the only way they could get out of this place they were in, the asylum and all that place. So on that, speaking of that part, I'm not trying to be a downer. The music is good, though. It's just the storylines with it is kind of deep, kind of tragic. So, but I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I guess I just, I've had a pretty good life. I'm not everything's perfect, but I sometimes have a hard time grasping. I know there's people who go through this kind of stuff, man, and it's probably happening right now as we're speaking about this kind of stuff. That this stuff is happening places, but it's hard sometimes to jump in their mind to this stuff. You know what I mean? So, but it is good. I don't know. That's all I got. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, it's not Ronnie James Dio's wishing well. Let's put it that way. Bill.
It's not Paul Rogers wishing well either, but the one thing I noticed, and I like I said, I've had a short time of listening to this, is this is another Who flavored song, melody wise and rhythmically. That's the one thing about, well, now Frankie didn't play on this one, so I'll talk about Frankie later. But the Blackie seems to like to have the drums really active. So this would have been Stet Howland, just really just going total Keith Moon on the drums. There's not necessarily a pattern to what he's playing, but it's just rhythmically, uh, just completely fluid to where it's always moving under the song. And that works out with Blackie's kind of songwriting too, where, a lot of it's like holding an open chord and then the drums kind of pushing it along. And then, there may be a melody and then you bring in the vocal melody and all that stuff. But the one thing I noticed today, because I had been listening to this like on my stereo and on my Jeep and all that stuff, and I put in these earbuds, which I paid way too much for, and there is an amazing bass line buried so deep inside this song. And, praise to Mike Duda for that bass line, because back to the Who, it sounds a little oxish. It sounds like something that you would hear him do. And it's just really good, and it's fluid all the way through the song. And I think that's probably a basis where it matches the melodies of the guitars and the vocals to that drum beat, because it's just kind of some glue that fits in between it, and it's really good. And outside of that, there's no guitar solo, so there's nothing outstanding from shit. I can't remember his name again.
Daryl.
Daryl
Yeah,
Roberts.
Daryl. I want to say Douglas for some reason, but yeah, Daryl. Great. The rhythm playing on it's great. The melody. I mean, they really just play the song really well. And outside of that, that's what I got.
Damn it, Bill! You nicked my oxish, because that's my first note is the great bass line, immediately reminiscent of Ox. It's got that running lead bassy feel, which is why you don't need a guitar solo on it. Why have a lead guitar solo when you really have a lead bass holding that track down? You don't need it. And you also mentioned drummers. There's something I really like on this song versus all the other ones, and it's the snap of the snare. When Stet is smashing that thing, there's a really nice resonance coming out of that snap, crisp, which is really captured well. Again, it comes down to how well it's recorded. We talked about how great the acoustic guitars sound on this. That one was, just sounds spectacular. And then, of course, you come back to the subject matter of the Wishing Well being about drowning away the pain. And it kind of ruins the mood of all that great musicality underlying it. So musically fantastic track. I like how it's a direct segue from the first intro. Let's move into Sister Sadie, and I wish it was called And Her Black Habits rather than The Black Habits. I know it's a play on the old nun thing. Andy, were you none too pleased with this?
I it's fine with me. I like the music. Blackie's voice, man, on this album is like really unbelievable. I can't believe that Blackie doesn't get enough recognition for his voice alone. You know what I mean? His voice is just unbelievable. There's no doubt about it. And whoever he ever, picks up playing, bass. Oh, Mike's been there for years now. But playing the drums, anybody who's picked up has been top notch too. So everything seems to go with the flow. And not just music wise, but now I'm actually gotten more into the storylines too, with this thing. Now I've been at this thing for now, more since we said, since we're going to be doing these things. I've been at these now. So now I'm like really into the story as much as I am to the music with this thing now. Now, again, this is one of those weird things where, man, this stuff has probably happened and has happened and it's still happening now. The nun basically, here we are, we're supposed to be good Catholic people, nun people, and we're basically being brutal. We're raping these kids, Go from one. This is not your happy, feel good album, I'll tell you. It just. But I like the music. I like the way Blackie sounds. It's hard for me to. I don't know. It's just very hard for me to like. Oh yeah, this is just like bang, 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 bang. Yeah. I love this. Stuff like that. But I know I probably sound bad on this one. I don't know, Bill. I don't know what really to say. It's weird.
Well, and I agree with so much of the points that you were just making about how, this is something that you would think is unheard of, but has probably been going on for a long, long time. But this is the part where Jesse is the victim in the story because he was
Again,
basically just being tormented, and that's the thing is about it. The one thing about Sadie that he picked out was the smell of alcohol in her breath because he smelled alcohol in his mom's breath when she was abusing him. Yeah, and that's one thing. It's like it's definitely a drag story, but I mean it's part of the story nonetheless. As far as musically, I think the "I Don't Believe" chorus is about the hookiest part of the entire album. But then again, that could be the same as I don't want to be, I don't want to be, I don't want to be. So going back to Crimson, the solo was tasty, stuck, right inside the melody, but a great guitar solo and well played. And it is back to the subject of the story. It's, it's interesting that that's part of what made him who he ends up being in the story. Oh yeah, I had a nice tempo change at the end. Would be a good live bit. Did you say they did play this live, Andy?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, they
Okay.
did.
So it would be a good live bit, and that there's a chanty part in there that could get the crowd into it, and that's what I have on that.
Nice. Oh, Sister Sadie. I went to Catholic school, so I can relate. But it conjures kind of conjures the visuals of something Ghost might be doing these days, subject matter wise. But it seems to be more like a person in conflict and confusion about faith and the pain and all that, rather than just the story of the evil nun, because I've known a few, and I'm still emotionally scarred. Musically, it's a fantastic track. I love the guitar work on it, so I can see why they picked this one to do live, but it's the tone of the guitar on this song that I really, really dig. I also like the break section, which is almost a completely different song. And all these sorts of changes musically throughout the song make it, for me anyway, from my reference points, very Maidenish. And it's kind of dynamic. You get a 10-minute Maiden song, and it's basically 3 3-minute songs. And this one has these little sections as well that are kind of almost independent of themselves. All right, moving back into Crimson Idol territory for me, The Rise. And we're not talking about Paul Stanley and his Levi's. It harkens back to Idol for me, Crimson Idol. And other than that, it seems more about scene setting than anything else. And I feel there could have been more to it. It's too truncated. It's not there. Bill.
Well, the first thing I noticed about it was, it's a moody transitional piece with no solo, and it's not bad, but I don't think it would stand on its own outside the album. But I'm a little confused. Is this out of the timeline with the album? Because you don't know if this is something that's going on in his head when he's still in the orphanage, or if it's something that comes later after he becomes his own self-declared Messiah. But the more I think about it, it could be just the thing where, like where he just basically says, I'm going to rule the world and all this while he's still getting beaten by Sister Sadie. But I thought, it could kind of go either way, whether it fits into the timeline or not. But, well played, no guitar solo, and just good, just well done.
Andy.
Well, this is where I had said where they could have used somebody else to sing the parts. It's not my favorite track off the whole thing, but it's like the Invisible Circus sings one line fast, and then it's Jesse. Then it's Invisible Circus again. Then it's Jesse. Then it's Invisible Circus. Then it's Jesse again. Invisible Circus. Jesse again. Jesse to the. It's like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it's fast. It's too bad that he just didn't get somebody with a little bit of different voice to fire back and forth, just a little bit, something a little bit different, because it gets confused. You get confused, man. You're like, okay, Oh no, but it's Blackie. No, it's not Blackie. It's the other person. But you know what I mean? It's confusing. It's not my favorite track off the album. That's for sure. But it goes along with the story. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's followed by another interlude type piece, Why Am I Nothing? Which for me is just, kind of a repeat of Why Am I Here? I mean, it's the same kind of question. Sequentially, it feels like it's supposed to relate to jumping in the well, but it could also relate to various parts of the story. So, it's short, it's okay, whatever. I'm more interested in the full song, to be perfectly honest. Andy.
Yeah, kind of same thing. He's talking to God again. Why am I here? Why am I nothing? Why am I this and that? Same thing as basically as the other one. So it's nothing big. It's just it is there. It's there. They just must in between the songs. So that's about it for that.
Bill.
And yeah, as I just had very short transitional piece, but the great thing about it is it matches the transitional piece early on. The great acoustic guitars back. It sounds like they're cohesive parts of the same story, which is kind of really good for keeping you in touch with the beginning of it. If it had been a little different or something like that, it might have thrown the listener off. That's all I got on that. And
Well,
Julian,
then take us into Asylum number 9.
okay, I called this a great song. I think it could stand on its own as a single and a super tasty guitar solo. The lyrics are definitely scripted to where I think that like maybe a video would make it seem more cohesive. Lead you kind of down the Operation Mindcrime kind of bit, where even though Tate was singing what was going on, he had the voices coming from Dr. X or whatever. But yeah, I just think it's a great song, and it's where it can actually just kind of stand on its own, because the nurses and Dr. D, they're not arguing with Jesse. Jesse has his parts in there, but it's not that rapid fire thing like in the last song.
Yeah, it wasn't crazy enough for me for being the Looney Bin song, but I actually like some of the lyrics. Are you in pain or merely just misguided or merely misguided? Yeah, I like that. But the chorus gets really grating on me for the length of song, so it was like one I felt could have been edited down musically, and I didn't write any notes about the music. The chorus gets annoying. Andy.
Asylum number 9. I love this song. This is my favorite track off the whole album. Point blank. I love it. It just got that guitar thing. This is one of those songs that could stand on its own. It would be kind of cool for a video because the Doctor. It would make just an awesome video when you think about it. Let me think. No. Yeah, I love this song. This song can stand on its own. I love that guitar, the way it plays. Asylum number 9. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I don't care. I love it long. Keep it going.
It's your song. You're allowed to like whatever you like about it. You said they did Sister Sadie live. Which was the other one? Do you remember off the album that they did live? And if not, try and remember before we finish. Because I will get into my favorite song on the album. Actually, no, I'm lying. The Red Room, so. The Red Room of the Rising Sun. Bill, start us off on that.
Sorry, I was shuffling my notes and I realized that I hadn't done my top 3 yet, so I was going through that. Great song. I actually kind of call it Tomorrow Never Knows, the Red Room of the Rising Sun, because it ventures into that in the middle of the song. This wouldn't be very single worthy in my opinion, because there's so much audibly stuff going on. So, there's a lot of noises in the background and stuff. So it probably wouldn't work as a single. But it's a great piece. And I think that this might be the seed in Jesse's life that basically tells him what he ends up doing later. He needs to walk away from, because he gets that friendship with Billy at that point and realizes that there was love there, and he wasn't trying to. He knew what love was and was continuously trying to find what he thought it was. Killer album cut though.
Andy.
Funky song. Love the drums on it. I don't know what was going on with that. Like I said, I'm not a pro. I don't know nothing about that stuff. I just like the sound of it. It's just got that. It's got a whole different sound. This is probably the one song that sounds totally different off the whole album. You know what I mean? They get the drums, the way to whatever that funky sound's going on. I love it. I think it's pretty cool.
Wow, I'm the odd man out on this one because I do not like this song at all. I don't like songs with Red Room or Rising Sun. I just find that, so cliched at this point. I think it's a good stylistic change musically. I get that, and it does freshen up where we're at in the album so it doesn't become two-note, the acoustic stuff followed by electric stuff, blah, blah, back and forth. But it's too crowded, and it's muddy. And it sounds like it's trying too hard for me to represent the description in the story, though it perfectly expresses, I guess, what someone might perceive to be a druggie's perception. So it's muddy and crowded, and so from that kind of perspective, it makes sense. But I don't like it. Bill, did you want to add something?
No, but I do understand where you think it could be muddy and crowded, though. I mean, because really, like the Tomorrow Never Knows part really doesn't fit in the rest of the song. So, but yeah, I mean, where the person, addicted to drugs or whatever, or to sex or whatever it might be, they're not necessarily thinking rationally anyway. So I see your point on that.
Get us started on What I'll Never Find.
Okay, I thought this was a great song with a good hook, and even though it is 6 minutes long, I think it could be edited down to a single. The guitar solo on it is smoking. Daryl, and I actually wrote Daryl's name down here so I could remember it. I think that Daryl plays on a Kulick brother level solo on this song. I mean, it's really tasty. There's a lot of chords involved in the solo, and even for it being a slower ballad, the solo just totally rips on it. That's what really stuck out to me on that one.
Nice. Andy?
Oh boy, this has got Go Gog. I can't see the name of the Go Gog song written all over it. This was definitely taken. You know what I mean? The song there, I forgot the name of the song. The sound, the guitar. Exactly.
Yep.
So this is the song of the
year. We'll get to that one in a few episodes.
I know, but I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's basically, it sounds better on this. Sounds better on this than this. That's what I say. But it's okay. But as soon as I heard, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, let's go out the, it better. So it's okay. Like you said, Daryl's really good on a guitar and everything else. But it's as soon as I hear it, I hear Go Out the songs.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, so my notes on this one are pretty straightforward. Blackie continues to knock it out of the park with the power balladish type material, and again, it's a nice change of pace. Whereas I'm not a fan of the previous song, this to me works because of the soaring guitar work. It's perfectly stated against a subdued track with a longing, hope, desperation, despair. It's not quite hallowed ground good, but it's still very, very good. And again, I like that constant drone of a keyboard note lingering underneath all the music. It just, helps the atmosphere. And again, it's like doubling your guitar with a piano. It just provides that sort of atmosphere and touch. All right, somebody or someone to love me, all I need. Another interlude. Bill.
Somebody. Oh, sorry. Yeah, someone to love. I really had it. Of course, it's a short number. It's probably Blackie's best vocal, as far as even in the slower parts. The electric guitar is nice and clean, where it doesn't sound like you just plugged it into a power amp and you don't have any tone control. The tones are beautiful on it, and you can tell where a clean electric guitar doesn't need to sound like a acoustic guitar, and it doesn't need to sound like a distorted electric guitar. Really, outside of that, I think the lyrics are pretty decent. That's the thing about it, is when you're writing an opera like this, you have to have these little short interludes to where it's setting up the next scene, and this does it pretty well in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's another word that I use to describe it. My one-word review of the song was pretty. And I like this. This is my favorite of the intro pieces on the album, and it really sets the stage for the next track perfectly, as far as I'm concerned. And my only other notes was that otherwise, I think all these intros are fluff that could be tacked onto the songs without giving them their own billing and shoehorning plot elements into their titles. So a little bit unforgiving, but again, I like it the best of all of them. Andy.
Sure, it's easy, short, sweet, to the point. The end.
Okay, then XTC Riders, Andy.
Oh, this is my second favorite song off the album. This kind of reminds me a little bit in the beginning of the song, the beginning half of the song, kind of reminds me of, it could be almost like an 80s and it's stuck in the 80s kind of thing. A little bit. Not 100% because at the ending part, it gets changed again. It does have that feel of the 80s kind of thing. I like this kind of song. I like it. It cranks. This is one of those, like Asylum Number 9. That and this XTC, these are the two, for me personally, these are the two they could have been slapped on anywhere and just play them and they're like, yeah, man, this is it. This could be, like I said, kind of an 80s kind of thing. So I love it.
You nailed it. You totally nailed it. Bill.
I agree with Andy. Actually, I think it's a great classic sounding song. I think this could fit somewhere between Last Command and Electric Circus. Good chugging rhythm. And, that's the thing is after you've heard, 8 or 9 songs of basically the operatic version or the concept band version of W.A.S.P, it's kind of cool to just get back into a dun 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 dun, dun kind of jam. Guitar solos on it's great. I think the lyrics could stand on their own as a single. Maybe not the best single off the record, but it's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, you both nail everything that I didn't write in my notes about this one, but hands down, this is the best song on the album for me, probably because it's an echo of the area where I became a fan of Blackie Lawless and W.A.S.P. But it also, when you go back to the lyrics and you open up the instruction manual and you read about it, and what it's talking about is it represents very well musically the rush of euphoria. Yeah, we get it. It's like pulsing adrenaline feel of a racing heart, and it delivers that, which I guess is the complete point of where it fits into the story anyway. So Blackie nails it. Blackie Lawless, I mean, underrated as a vocalist, as a writer, and it comes through. And this also comes through. I didn't have any notes for the next intro piece, Me and the Devil, until my final listen today before doing this show. And thinking about Blackie and what he's done with his career, the acoustic orchestral nature of most of these segue pieces or connective tissue make me hope that Blackie does an unplugged album. I would love W.A.S.P. Unplugged. I think it could be really, really cool when you think about what some of the better bands have done with their unplugged sessions by blowing your mind with what they've done with their unplugged sessions. I think Blackie, if they ever put Blackie Lawless on MTV Unplugged, let alone showed some music on MTV, could really blow some people's minds about, number one, his singing, and then they might recognize his songwriting. Because you wouldn't need a Chris Holmes there to do a Chris Holmes guitar. There's so much more in the canon of what he does that I think it'd be a very cool take on W.A.S.P. So that's all I get out of this intro, is how I like him to do something else as a different project. Bill.
Yeah, the only downside to your idea of like an MTV Unplugged is Blackie's become such a studio junkie, for no better word for it. You don't know how many takes it takes for him to get that excellent vocal that actually is making it to the tape. He could be absolutely magical and be cutting it on the first couple takes, or he could be doing Axl Rose thing where he spends 3.5 months on a song. You don't know what's going on with that because he's kind of in the shadows so much. And when they do tour, it's so limited. And you don't really, like when you're in the live band situation, you don't really get the great vocals in a live show where they can just come in and bust out, gorgeous stuff in the studio. So, but I would love to see an unplugged. I'm not sure that Me and the Devil would be one of those tracks because I basically just said meh, and that's all I had for it. But but his vocal quality, his compositional, and the fact that he's orchestrating all of these albums after well, basically from the beginning, he's orchestrated whatever W.A.S.P has put out, and 9 times out of 10 it's really great stuff, or did I say 8 out of 9 times? So whatever. But he does have a great compositional mind, and I've always appreciated his composition skills. And like going back to Someone to Love Me, that vocal is just beautiful, and that's what I would love to see on MTV Unplugged. That's what I got for Me and the Devil's meh.
Yeah, even as a no TV Unplugged, even if he just went into the studio and did however many takes, I still would have rather had that than Re-Idolized. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Andy.
Just Me and the Devil. Not much to it.
Nope. The Running Man. There's more to it than that, so Running Man, go for it.
Oh, me? It's not one of my favorite tracks either. I don't know why. It just doesn't do it for me. Kind of weird. I don't know. I don't know. That's one of them I just haven't got into that much. It's like, for me, I don't say skip, but I've listened, but I don't know. It's not one of my favorite tracks off the album. Sorry.
Either works for you or it doesn't. There's no right or wrong answer, even if that was wrong. Bill.
This is one I didn't actually physically write notes for, but this is an interesting turning point in the story where he's deciding to leave the Invisible Circus. And, basically him and Judah are going toe to toe, basically like I would assume a shouting match. It's great it fits the story. I can't recall anything musically that really stood out to me, good or bad, but it's still keeping my interest to where I'm looking forward to part 2.
Well, that's a relief as we get to the wrap up for talking about these songs and do our favorites and least favorite. The Running Man for me, I really like, because it's a very Still Not Black Enough sounding track. That all it's missing is Bob Kulick's guitar tone. So naturally, I like this one because I love that album, but all respect to Daryl is that it's got another great guitar solo on it. And notice most of my comments go about the music rather than the story, because again, I mentioned at the top that's how I approach stuff. Andy, maybe you like this last song. Maybe we'll get lucky. Raging Storm, lead us into the end of the tracks, and then we'll do our favorites and least.
Yeah, I like this song. I like the guitar work. I like how it ends it. It doesn't just like drop off. It's got, it's not like super mellow. Like, okay, now we have to wait until the next album. We see April, May, June, July, August, 6 months. So I like it. It's in, we'll talk. It's in my top 3. So I like it. It's a good way to end it. End it for that half. I'm good with it.
Nice. So I have down with my notes that it's a heapish epic ending. Again, because of the keyboards, my reference point is generally Heap when it comes to that style. But it's also another song that doesn't take too much figuring out or digging through 10 pages of freaking notes to figure out where we're at. It's not a conclusion, but it ends the album in a satisfactory manner until you get to part 2. And again, it's got a great lyric that I like. Scars of memories remain. I like that. It's nothing spectacularly complex. It's just very succinct and well stated. Bill.
Yeah, I didn't have any pencil down notes on this one, but yeah, it's a good track, and like I said before, well played, and it does definitely. It's like the roller coaster coming back into the station. You know, you're not getting your neck snapped by the locking of the brakes or whatever, but you're kind of cruising in, and it takes you into that next dimension of what's going to be part two. That's
All right.
what I got.
Okay.
Well,
Andy, did I get
I
you?
have to. There's another thing too. We should discuss about this. You know, you can't blame Blackie for both albums were supposed to come out together. That was the glitch too. You know what I mean? But the record companies kept telling Blackie, "Oh no, we can't do that. It's going to cost like too much money and this and that." And there was a thing Blackie had discussed it or somewhere about, you know, he wanted basically Rise and Demise to come out together as a double thing. And the record company was like, no, 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 no. And basically it came down to about money. They just wanted to make more money, he said. So that's why it was the 6 months separation between 1 and 2. You know? So, bummer. It would have been nice to get them both at the same time.
Did you speak to the last song? And are we into favorites? Or do you still have to speak about the Raging Storm? I can't remember. Sorry.
Nope. All done.
Then, why don't you give us your top 3 songs off this album?
He says you, but he doesn't actually say a name, so I'm assuming it's me.
Yes.
Okay, so my first one is Asylum, number 9. That's number 1 for me. Number 2 is XTC Riders. That's number 2. And my third is The Raging Storm.
Well, all right. Bill, what are your top 3?
And like I said before, it's really kind of hard to pluck these out from the cohesive piece. But I mean, the 3 of them that I kind of clued in for that I thought were actually like single worthy was number 3 would have been Asylum number 9, and number 2 was Wishing Well, and number 1 would be XTC Riders.
And there we are. I agree. XTC Riders is my favorite. And then, The Running Man, again, because it's still not black enough feel. And the second and third are equals. Wishing Well, really good song. But there's a couple of others that would be in contention for me. But also a lot that are just kind of middling when we're talking about best and worst. Which, worst, Bill, what's your least favorite? And I should say that you're not allowed to pick any of the connective segue pieces.
Oh,
because
no, don't do that to
That's
me.
just that's a cop out. That's like putting the 2-second gap between the songs as your least favorite track.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not
Well,
what it-
I was gonna give my clue is meh, but let's see. I'm just kind of reviewing here because you changed the rules on me. Man,
Oh, did I forget to
the
send the
dig
message? Oh, darn.
Yeah, I don't think that's not what it says in my message.
You guys get messages?
Andy, least
I-
favorite. While Bill
Yeah,
while Bill gets
there
the
you
shovel
go.
and digs out of the hole I dug him. What's your least favorite, Andy? Or did you pick an interlude as well?
No, I did said it wasn't my favorite, was The Running Man.
Yep.
I said that right away, even when we were going through it. The Running Man's, because you said you can't count the other ones, which I didn't think I would count really that much anyways, because I don't think they're...
Most of
Did you
them are,
find-
they're not long enough to dislike. I mean, if you don't like it, the suffering's over quickly. All right, so I mentioned my least favorite as well during talking about it, and that's the Red Room of the Rising Sun. Just not a fan of it. All right, Bill, have you made a choice, or are you going to go back to meh and say, no, I'm sticking with meh, and you can stick it if you don't like it? Meh.
I'm going to cop out because I think that the Red Room of the Rising Sun of the complete 2-minute plus tracks would probably be my least favorite. Although it's not really, I mean, it's not, I don't find it bad. I don't find it where it's unlistenable. But, I mean, it's just kind of a jumbled up mess when in comparison to some of the other pristine stuff on this record.
Yep, maybe overthought that one a little bit while creating the album. There we go. That is the Neon God Part 1. We will regroup in a month or so to talk about the second one, which, is much shorter. I'm wondering if there was ever released just the Neon God anywhere, any market in the world as a double CD.
I don't think so.
That's rhetorical. Probably not.
It
Probably
was
not
hard
LP.
enough to get one, right, Andy?
I still don't own a physical copy of Neon 2. So I found one at Amoeba in San Francisco, and it was like $3.99, and I skipped it. I probably should not have, as I've never seen it again. So, all right. Any last thoughts, Andy?
I'm gonna say though, man, Blackie's voice is just unbelievable on this album, and he's actually a really good producer too. I don't think we even discussed that kind of thing. He really produces really well.
We've touched on it with the separation, but that is, of course, Blackie Lawless is in that seat. W.A.S.P is Blackie, so you would hope that he would know exactly what the vehicle's supposed to be, since he's not only owns the car, he's driving it. So
yeah,
well, I think that he kind of kudos to him for actually bridging the gap of the changing technology, because the first album, I'm sure it was cut to 2-inch tape like everything else was in 1984, but then he's actually transitioned into the digital age, and where it's still not black enough. I mean, it's a great album, but I mean, recording wise, he was dealing with brand new stuff, digital recording, digital drums, and all that stuff, and then he's continued to progress on to where I think the last two albums have been some of the best of their career. And I mean, that's the thing about it, is I've got that one thing about a cymbal that that I don't like in his recording, but the rest of it, man, it's fantastic stuff.
And that's why we continue to talk about these albums.
Yeah, there were not a lot of people were making albums that sounded this good in 2004, at least as far as with traditional bands.
Yeah, there we go. So, we will leave you with thoughts and dreams of a MTV W.A.S.P Unplugged, and he'll bring back memories, members of the family, Chris Holmes, Randy Piper, Rick Fox. Who knows? Highly unlikely. There we go. It'll have to remain a dream. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Look It's Rock and Roll podcast.
See ya.
It's been a long time since we've rock and rolled, but that all changes this August as Rockin' Pod returns to Nashville. This annual convention brings together rock artists, fans, and podcasters for an unforgettable rock experience. Special guests this year include Billy Sheehan, Ron Keel, Don Jameson of That Metal Show, and current and former members of Winger, LA Guns, Accept, and more. Stage panels, signing sessions, and photo ops will be available, plus lots of vinyl and memorabilia vendors. Music podcasters from all over North America will be appearing on site for live interviews, speaking sessions, networking, and more. Got a music podcast? Register and join us. Rockin' Pod Weekend kicks off with a pre-party featuring former Tesla guitarist Tommy Skio and his new band Resist and Bite, making their debut performance, as well as a rare hair set featuring surprise guests performing all-time classics. Rockin' Pod Weekend takes place August 6th through the 8th in Nashville, Tennessee. Tickets, VIP passes, podcast registration, and discounted hotel rooms are available now at rocknpod.com. Rockin' Pod is brought to you by DBG Productions, Bradley Entertainment, and Incaptia.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. Be sure to subscribe to us, like us, or even leave us a review. You can find us and join the conversation on Facebook.